Hello, everyone. This is Faheem Jackson, and this is episode 81 of my podcast show, In the Know. This podcast is aimed at trying to guide people through the world with a variety of topics. I'm also using this platform to ask questions and try my best to answer these questions with my viewpoints of the world around me. The following is an introduction speech into the topic of today. And the introduction speech is regarding if a deity were to be found in the desert. The toughest aspect of a belief system in regards to the person who is the leader and founder of the faith is recognizing them for being man versus the child of a higher power. Because the last thing you want is to believe in any faith base where the person you thought was someone saving humanity will be just no more than man. A good man, but just a man. Maybe who inspired us all, but someone that has been run off as the child of God. Yet how do we know that who the person truly told people they were, who they say they were? They could have been just here to inspire, which turned into a more deity-driven character. Now the topic of today regarding a deity being found in the desert is hard to fathom, considering this could turn the tides of religion forever. Meaning if Moses were to be found, this is the launching point for the other two religions. So there would be a lot of negative reactions when trying to prove this point to be real. Now let's analyze this a little further to make sure what is fully meant by a deity found in the desert. What if a deity were to be found in the Middle East? Let's look at the ascension after death, starting with Moses. As Moses transitioned from this life into the other, Moses was said to have been buried, yet no one knows the exact place of his site. For starters, this place is called Mount Nebo, which is located in the country of Jordan. The mountain is extended into another mountain range named Abraham. It is to be said that the range from a biblical standpoint was raised by Moses so the people could see the land of Canaan. Now, we all have these theories as to how this could be possible considering the scientific evidence. Yet even with the faith base as to how the mountain range was created, you still have Moses being buried on the premises. Will there ever be an excavation as to where he is buried? Absolutely not. So where do we go from here? Well, we will see later on in the passage, as now we move on to Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus. The place where Jesus Christ died is Golgotha. This is also the site of his crucifixion. But unlike the life of Moses, Jesus is said to have been elevated into the sky. The only thing that was left was the cloth, which he was wrapped in, known as the Shroud of Turin. So even if we wanted to go and seek a body, there's no place to go and look. Jesus Christ could be in the Golgotha, or back in Bethlehem where he was born. He could even be in a city that no one has yet to locate. But saying his bones are still here on earth implies that he never ascended to heaven. So after making the statement regarding his bones in the desert, it is enough to close ears. The Prophet Muhammad. This is the place where the Prophet died and buried, and that place is Medina. Not only is this the place where he died, he's also buried here with his uncle and another companion. But the idea of Muhammad ascending into the sky as well is hard to believe while his body is here on earth. So how are we going to address the topic today about bodies found in the desert or somewhere else when he lies here already? That is, unless there are still stories that are held in their original beliefs. So with that said, let's speculate moving on. Why the desert? This is very important because so much of the Middle East is covered in desert. So the idea of finding Moses in the desert is a reality considering he roamed the desert with his people. Now, in today's society, the once desolate landscape is completely desolate today, but it is mainly a site of tourism. It is important to note that this area of the world is not the place we see it as today. The land was more wide open, and here's where we understand that the desert makes sense as to why these deities would be found in the desert. Or in this case, Moses. Golgotha. Jesus' body, as to why it may be the desert, is because of how the kingdom was built in the middle of the desolate environment. Let's be clear, the deserts are barren, but also there have been kingdoms built in these places, and the world is not what it is today. The world at that time didn't have the roads we have today and big buildings, yet there were still enough lush vegetation that served as crops to eat and scenery along with roads to move about from place to place. Medina. Saudi Arabia is a very desert country, but even with the country being so much in the desert, there were also oases in areas of the country as well. This is hard to believe, because so much of the land today is desolate, but not like in the past. Now don't get me wrong, there were bare areas of the land, yet not like today. So with that said, could there possibly be an area of the land where the Prophet Muhammad may be found, not in the place where we are being told? Or are the burials we have now the right burial places? Government intervention. Here's the part where we would have a problem trying to navigate the land and even attempting to find the bodies of deities. The government does not want to open a can of worms. They understand that people don't want their faith to be tested by digging up someone that they feel is more than man. Now, shouldn't society know the truth about who these individuals were so that society can move forward? But wait a minute. What is that supposed to mean? Moving forward with what? The truth? Oh, okay. Here's what the government doesn't want to open up a can of worms. You have a few people that want to crush the idea of religion, while others want to preserve the identity of religion. So the government has to be as fair as possible, because the last thing they want to take the side of people aiming to remove the religion, while so many people are held in the belief of it. Yet, even with the government allowing digs to the place, the true believers would never believe, even if someone were to be found. What could be found? Now let's observe if anthropologists were to start digging. What are we going to see? Maybe the ground holds a past civilization anywhere you go on Earth. So when you go to these parts of the world, be prepared to find not only bones of people, but also entire villages and sometimes cities. Now, if this were something that were to be hypothesized, then government officials may look into this, but not deities. If you say we have reason to believe an entire city is underneath the sands of the deserts or city structures, they may look into it. And to be honest, you're more likely to find a city than a god reincarnated as man. You may find some bones, but most likely those would be bones of families dying in one given area, or many together with clothing and weapons, which point to a major battle. Another reason to dig is because of a water resource, which is the cradle of any human civilization. But for a second, let's go back and look at the idea of a lost city or village. A city was recently found in Mexico not long ago, which was thought to have inhabited a few 100,000, which now we know was home to millions of people. So with that said, we might want to go looking because you find something much greater than what you were previously looking for. Who could be found? Now that we have observed what could be found, now let's look into the idea of who could be found. Moses and the Prophet Muhammad were laid to rest, but Christ's body levitated to the heavens. Now there are also aspects of how these other two men died and transitioned as well. Like starting with Moses. What would happen if bones that dated back to that time period were to be found near Mount Nebo? People would immediately not think about Moses. They would think about the people at the time that worked and built the land. If you tried to put the idea out there that a deity might be found, it would immediately get shot down. And that is Moses. We don't even want to go down the road of Christ or even the Prophet Muhammad. All you would end up with is a lot of problems that you are not prepared to deal with. The denial. My God is my lifeline are the words spoken from the mouth of a man or woman who believes in religion. So when you're going down the road of men and women possibly having to look themselves in the mirror and realizing that this is it, and there is no more of what they were promised via religion, prepare for the backlash. someone's existence is wrapped up in the idea that these deities, spoken to the people from God, will have a prosperous afterlife. It has become the reason to do anything. Because think about it. What is the reason to work hard in life if this is it? You should just spend your life doing whatever you feel like doing, whatever ails you. But let's be honest. We won't make it to this point because people will immediately disregard what was found. Then again, society is moving away from religion. So finding a dead deity will be received poorly by some. But what about others? Let's take a look at a faith in limbo. What happens if there is a body found in the desert? Will that mean we will have belief systems that are in a predicament at this point? Because for the longest, there's been a held belief that these deities, some buried, ascended to the heavens. And we're going to be stuck with the truth that they are just man. Nothing more, nothing less. These are men who inspire those of us to be in faith. But men nonetheless. Yet will it do what I stated in the title? A faith in limbo? Maybe during this temporary time which is now, as time progresses, people will only remember the new era with no religion. They will look at the finding as a great piece of history, yet won't understand the fascination with having a deity. What about the newfound beliefs? Will there ever be a new religion with a new deity that pops up after the findings of these three men who started the three top religions? Could be. Will there ever be a central figure like the previous men? The belief could be more of an idea than a person for the masses to worship. Because a person has too many flaws, but an idea is capable of being reworked, reformed over time. You're allowed to pick apart ideas and present better ones. So with this end statement, why we have to know what could happen if a deity were to be found in the desert. Finding a deity in the desert, it's like a specific needle in a stack of needles. The lands of the desert are so vast, even the lands where there is lush vegetation. So it really does not make any sense to go looking into the desert. You won't find much, maybe a few relics from a past civilization, but nothing more than that. So let's not go looking too deep into the sands, because you may spend a lot of money and time to find much of nothing. Let's go looking into the sands for lost cities and treasures, instead of bodies that are aimed at bringing down cultures. Because in the end, that is what we would be truly trying to do. Remove the idea of a deity from the social stratus of the human experience. So, thank you for listening to In the Know, and I'll be bringing you another episode regarding religion. The topic will be about asking the question, are we prepared for the Bible to be right?